Hey, and good evening to everyone out there. Dr. Jonathan Shepard here. I am so glad to be with you on another Friday edition of Ask the Doctors. I am privileged to come into wherever you may be at, your homes, place of business, even place of worship. I know people even watch us sometimes in the place of worship. I just want to make sure you are not doing or be disrespectful as you do it. But yeah, as you're shopping at the gas station, wherever you may be, we're so thankful that you are watching Ask the Doctors. Today is Friday, October the 8th, 2021. So glad to see you all coming in the room. Please share, please like. Let me know you're out there. Send a quick comment, send something to chat to let me know that you're watching. Let me know that you are enjoying what you're hearing today. Man, we got an awesome topic for you today, something that so many of us deal with. And I'm looking to see how our conversation progresses to see how we can help in this particular area. I just want to first mention that this show is sponsored by Hope Health Systems, where I serve as the Chief Medical Director. Hope Health Systems is an outpatient mental health facility that's located in Woodlawn, Maryland. And we are one of the largest providers of mental health services in the state of Maryland, providing services for children, adolescents, and adults. And so grateful to be a part of that team. And you can go to our website and you can get the information that you need. I was just told that we're in the midst of updating our website. I am so excited about that. And as you are in need of services, you'll be able to actually fill out a referral at that website. If your child, if your adolescent, even if your adult or parent is in need of mental health services, come on over. We can help you. We are in the midst of a mental health pandemic. Yes, I know COVID-19 has stricken so many of us, and we have experienced over 700,000 people who have died from one virus. That just continues to blow my mind. But in the midst of that, we have a parallel pandemic, and that is the mental health pandemic, because there's so many people who are angry, anxious, and apathetic. Those are the three A's that I talk about that I have seen rise significantly throughout this time period: anger, anxiety, and apathy. Today, we're going to deal with one of those three A's, and I am so privileged to have some experts who are here with me to be able to help digest and give some insight on how to deal with one of those A's. The A that we're going to talk about today is anger. Wow. Anger. If I had a way to just see into everyone who's watching right now, I would ask to see how many times have you been angry just today? Oh man, I would even hate to ask how many times you've been angry this week. Oh man, anger. Or however many times have you actually seen anger overcome a person to where they can't even function, can't even happen. Oh, thank you. Oh, Mary Harris is out there. Oh, wow, thank you. She said she saw it a lot. Thank you for joining us. My friend KB Smith is out there. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so they're letting me know how many times they've seen it. I've seen it several times. Coming through my office and even outside the office. You'll even see it when you're driving your car, when people try to cut you off, or you won't allow them in, or they won't allow you in. Anger is just something that has risen to the point to where it really is scary. And we're going to talk about that today. We really are. Yeah. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dive into this because by the end of this, we want to hopefully have some peace in the midst of an angry society. Before I introduce our panelists, I do want to also acknowledge all of the people who will watch the replays. Thank you so much. As I've mentioned so many times, we have triple the number of people who will go back and watch. Yes, I never get discouraged by the number of people who are watching live. I'm encouraged, but let me tell you, I always go back a week later and be like, man, where did all these people come from? Thank you for those who watch. the replays, because I know that it is something that is helpful to you and providing encouragement and insight to you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm ready to get started. I'm going to bring on our first guest presenter. He's not a stranger to Ask the Doctor. He's not a stranger to me. He's a person who I respect highly, as I have seen him mature in his craft, even in his manhood. And so I am going to bring on the Mr. Derek Scott, and he will tell you what he does and how he operates within society. I don't want to jump the gun. There may be some things he wants you to know. There may be some things he don't want you to know. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great this evening, friend. It's so good to be on with you again, as always.
Yes, sir. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am currently a resident of the state of Michigan. Originally grew up in Chicago, but trained as an architect and as an urban planner, and lead a real estate development firm in the city of Detroit. A lot of very active in my community, serve as a ministry leader, and over the last several years have served in the capacity of a chaplain. And so most recently in my own city in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I serve as a police chaplain in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Father of many, husband to a beautiful wife, and just excited to be here and sharing with the good doctor, as I call him, on this show tonight. So I'm excited about the conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And please tell your wife I said hello. She is, and you think he's awesome. She's just as awesome as he is.
My superhero.
Yeah, they're a power couple. And so I'm so grateful. And their parents, yes, have trained her up right. And so he is the father of 7, just so y'all know. He didn't say how many people. Yeah, 7, God's complete number.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank you for being here. Did you tell the people that you are also a police chaplain? Did I hear that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. So great. So you'll see how his profession goes along with this conversation today. Next is a person who I have just had the privilege to be introduced to and meet. And I'm thankful for kindred spirits, and I'm thankful for the friendly manner in which she carries herself. And this is Chaplain Lisa Dennis. Welcome to Ask the Doctors, Chaplain Evangelist Lisa Dennis. How are you doing today?
I am doing well for Friday in the fall. I'm excited. I've heard a lot of good things about Ask the Doctor, and certainly I'm glad to be here. It's an honor of mine. I am Evangelist Lisa Dennis, Chaplain Lisa Dennis, or simply Sister Lisa. I come from Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, from a city called Chester. We're located in the south, I guess, east part of Delaware County. I am also a police chaplain. I've been a police chaplain for maybe about 12 years for the Chester Police Department. I'm also a law enforcement chaplain, emergency chaplain for Delaware County as well. And I have a couple of other hats in the chaplaincy in terms of serving law enforcement. My father was a police officer, so I'm a PK, and also servant leader. And I've been a community activist in our community for about 18 years now. I started out in a revitalization program called Weed and Seed. And from then, I got deeply involved or entrenched in the community. And we've been doing a lot of work as it pertains to violence in our community and the impact that it has on our children. So I am so happy to be here and to meet with you all.
Wow. I mean, that is an impressive resume. So thank you. And I didn't know the background with your father being a police officer. So that's just an added bonus. Wow. So as you see, we have 2 people who are committed to our communities, and one of the things that some people ask, well, Dr. Shepherd, and again, these are the guest presenters who ask me this. They say, well, I'm not a doctor. I don't have an MD. I said, well, you don't have to have a PhD or MD or anything like that, because as the doctors, we understand that you are doctors in your field. You are experts in your field, and we all need one another, and we all collaborate. So yes, these are doctors today who are going to help us in talking about anger. So let's go ahead. All right. We're about 11 minutes into the show. So let's talk about this. Anger is a natural emotion. All right. So please know that it's okay to be angry. All right. Somebody might even need to just hear that. You can type that in the chat, whatever. It's okay to be angry. It's natural. It's one of the emotions that we have. The issue is, how do we deal with anger that's out of control? Because anything that is allowed to stay too long can become out of control. Sadness, if you want to just flip it, it's okay to be sad, but if you stay sad too long, that's going to become a problem. I even hate to use the word happy. If you, I know somebody might say, "What you mean? It's a problem if I stay happy too long?" Well, it's only a problem if it's not true happiness. All right, and we're just saying we're happy just to be doing it. So anger is natural, but if it's out of control, it can get us into trouble. What I want to start with is so that people can help understand what's, I guess, what I would say appropriate anger and what I would say is out of control anger. So, Brother Derek, Chaplain Derek, help me to differentiate, to decipher between appropriate anger and anger out of control.
Certainly. So, I'll start with a phrase I heard in my house all the time because I grew up in a household of faith. Be angry, but sin not. It's okay to be mad, but what you do with that anger, dictates whether it's an appropriate response or not. And so I think a lot of times our anger is it can fuel us to do things that are appropriately placed, where it drives us toward action, positive change, or our anger can drive us to do something in the moment that we will regret later. And I think the way to distinguish between the two is what your immediate response is in what the potential item is that has made you angry. And so I'll start here by saying we should be quick to hear and slow to speak, slow to react. And so in listening, we should always think about what we're absorbing, who offended us, what offended us. Is it a person? Is it an individual? Or is it a circumstance? Is it the injustice we see on TV? Is it things that we're feeding ourselves through social media? Is it the media itself, that the more we watch and listen to the media, the angrier and the angrier we get? And after a while, if we continue to feed ourselves with so much that begins to pile up on the inside of us, at some point we're going to do something with that anger. We're going to do something with the feelings that we start to feel. And so whether or not that's a positive response or negative response really depends on how you've processed it. A lot of times we act in the moment out of a sort of a reflex action or knee-jerk reaction because I've been offended, or I feel like a wrong needs to be righted, and I'm the one to do that, without taking in consideration all the factors around the particular circumstance, so that you can formulate the correct response. I would say any response that's made in anger will result in death. It may not be a natural death, but it certainly could be an emotional death, or a death to a friendship, a death to a relationship, a death to a community, a death to trust. Whatever it is, the wrong response can certainly end in death. And in the worst case scenario, your actual life is in jeopardy, especially when we're talking about interacting with whether it's law enforcement or interacting with individuals who can do harm to you. all of those things matter when making a decision with how we're going to respond. When you take time to actually process your anger and really think about why you're angry, who offended you, and the context around it, it allows you to formulate a response that can be more productive. A soft answer always turns away wrath. So no matter how angry you are, you never meet anger with anger. I think it was Dr. King who said that the appropriate response to hate is never hate. Mm-hmm. And so you can never meet anger with anger because you're simply adding fuel to the fire. But it's a soft answer that turns away wrath. And so when we start thinking about positive solutions and change to things that have caused us to be angry, we need to channel that anger into sort of an indignant sort of response that prompts productivity in our communities, productivity in our homes, productivity in our relationships, that allows us to see valuable results that we can come to through consensus. Lastly, I'll say one of the things that I struggle with when I see people approaching conflict is that the end goal is to prove who's right or who's wrong. And whenever you're acting out of anger, we're never going to get to who's right or who's wrong. We're going to get, I think somebody said, when you see a fool arguing with someone, it's hard to determine which one in the argument is the fool. And so it's best to, one, listen. It's best when you're angry to take a moment to calm down, to digest everything that's happening, and then come up with solutions that help you to drive that, whatever that conversation is, forward, even if you and the other person don't agree. And so I think there's a difference between focused anger that drives you to results, and then sort of knee-jerk reaction anger that causes you to make a mistake that ultimately leads in death.
Jump in here, Chaplain Lisa.
Well, Chaplain Derek has kind of covered all bases. What I would simply say is it's a term that's called displaced anger.
Yes.
And displaced anger really is it's a defense mechanism.
Okay.
And it's used to self-soothe. So kind of what Chaplain Derek was talking about in reference to people, you almost come to a stalemate, and nobody really wins at that point. But with displaced anger, I'm finding out that it perpetuates. This is where communities that have a lot of fights, or organizations where there's a lot of fights, where there's a lot of negativity, a lot of high aggression. When I first started in the chaplaincy some years ago, we had a situation where there was a party at one of the centers in our area, and some kind of way it got out on Facebook, and there were young people everywhere. But there were two opposing sides that were in the room, and it resulted in gun violence. Wow. And 9 people were shot, and 2 individuals were killed. Wow. And so, as a chaplain, and in our community, we had never seen anything on that scale before, and it really created a lot of things. And we began to do these community discussions to deal with the conflict, because conflict is not bad; it's how we go about it. And so I'm pretty much dittoing what Chaplain Derek said, but it's the conflict, and we have to be able to learn how to deal with our own conflict before we can deal with conflict from on the outside.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm gonna stay with you, Chaplain Lisa, because the temperature in our society has been turned up. Pandemic has literally heated the whole country up. I'm not just talking about global warming, all right? Yeah. Global warming is real, but not only is the earth hotter, our mental or even I should just say our inability to handle things has gotten lesser, and our rage, that's the word I want to use, is hotter. It's been turned up. I know Chester. I've had a chance to visit Chester. There was a church that my church used to visit there in Chester, and it was a blue collar town, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Kind of factories,
Yeah.
and many times the factories end up closing, and so people no longer have the type of employment that they would want, and um, and I know that fuels some of the violence and some of the
Hmm.
anger. Tell me, what are you seeing in these neighborhoods? That's the question I'm getting at. What are you seeing as a chaplain in these neighborhoods regarding anger?
I'm seeing, yeah, there are there's anger, but a lot of times people don't identify anger as anger. We will hear words as frustration,
Mhm.
that can mask itself as anger. We hear a lot of our young people may say, I'm bored. That can mimic itself as anger, because we have a lot of our wiser citizens, our seniors. There's anger with them. So, because many of them are taxpayers and afraid to be out. Before it would be at night. Now I'm afraid to be out at all because of the violence, or just because they're vulnerable and someone may take advantage of them, or rob them, or some kind of way. So there are many. Our young people are angry. They're being blamed for everything. The parents are being blamed. The schools blaming the parents. The police are blaming the parents and the school. Everyone is passing the blame and or kicking the can down the street,
Right,
to see whoever gets it next. And
right.
so where we are, and what I applaud what you're doing, Doctor, is because instead of kicking the can, you're identifying with it. And
Yeah.
so conflict is good. And
Hmm.
sometimes, just like when we boil water, if you have a tea kettle, before we would know that it's ready when we would hear the whistle.
Hmm.
So, or when an egg is being boiled, sometimes we in communities we get right. I'm gonna hold my fence. We get right to the point at the boiling point,
Yeah.
and then sometimes it seems like it goes away. But
Hmm.
we've been working on some things called conflict, not conflict resolution, but conflict education,
Mm.
where everyone on all levels are involved in the process. So if it's a teacher and or a community member with the police, everyone that's involved that needs to be in the room is able to be part of that, because part of the solution. We had another, I guess, a movement. It was called Real Change, and it was, dealing with the pain. No, no names, no games, no shames, no blame, but just really dealing with the pain, because
Okay.
that's what's happening. Our community is in pain, and if we had physical pain, we would go to the doctor, and the doctor would say what's wrong, and then there would be a process or some kind of treatment. So that is what in our communities, there's pains at many level, and that is causing the increase of anger. And anger is also a part of grief. So a lot of our is grieve. People are grieving on many multiple levels as well, and we've also looked at the web of causation.
Hmm.
Where is this coming from? And that's why I started talking about how anger becomes displaced.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is not the individual, you just so happen to be at the right place at the wrong time, when sometimes that anger is manifested and is shown. So,
Wow. Come on, Derek, jump in. I know you're ready.
No, she's hitting it right on the head. There's our communities, when the amount of trauma that people experience, the conversations and the tensions. Um, there's a lack of empathy that exists
Mhm.
that prevents us from understanding the pain that others are going through, and feel like we're more justified in our pain and anger than maybe someone else is. And I think what we've tried to be really intentional with doing is trying to humanize or normalize individuals' experiences, so that you can have an appreciation of what others are going through, even if you're going through something yourself, so that what you may feel as an offense, or what you may feel as as sort of this tipping point or this tension, is not always a tension. And so where you may feel offended, or where you may feel like something is unjust, is not always an injustice. It's a lack of empathy. I'll give this example. There's I had an opportunity with a couple of our law enforcement officers to really get to know them and do some riding around. And with there's a gentleman who he always is on the night shift, and he's always responding to certain types of calls. And whenever he's coming in contact with these types of individuals, he's physically harmed on a consistent basis. And so it's hard for him to have humanized interactions with individuals outside of the workplace, because the people he's constantly coming in contact with are always hurting him. And so for someone who may not know that he's constantly experiencing hurt, they may think that he's an antagonist, or that he's cold. His sort of demeanor and his posture is very callous, which is not the case. He's one of the biggest teddy bears you actually ever want to meet. But his experiences have shaped how he approaches people now. And so if we lack empathy to get to know people, we'll never understand why they act the way they act, why they do what they do, why certain communities we go into, people are so mad. Why are those people always angry? It seems like these type of folks, black folks always act like this, white folks always act like that, Asian folks, and we start to categorize people because we lack empathy for the circumstances that cause them to respond the way they do. And so instead of getting to know individuals, or to getting to know the context of why people act the way they act, we simply become offended and we act in anger. We respond until things come to a boiling point. And then we want to have conflict resolution session where we want to bring everybody into the room. We want to try to sing Kumbaya now. We want to try to do, sort of these exercises to try to figure out how to bring tensions down. I think if we were more intentional with providing opportunities for us to develop more community with people that we don't know, it will allow us to have a greater level of empathy and maybe be less quick to respond in anger.
Right.
Wow. Go ahead, Chaplain.
We and I agree with you. Getting to know a person through a period of time, we would have these community dialogues, and we would ask people. We would intentionally say, "I see you," so that, because there are a lot of people who feel invisible. And again, if you don't know my story, you don't know. We say you don't know. You see the glory, but you don't know my story.
Right.
Today we had a march in Delaware County from a church, Second Baptist Church in Media, and to the courthouse. And it was led by it's a national movement called Faith and Blue.
Yeah.
So Faith and Blue is something that has been adopted in this area by our sheriff's office to really begin to continue that bridge, or and continue to mend those community and law enforcement relationships. Again, with the whole premise of I see you, many people talk at people and not talk to people, or we have to learn how to share space with one another. That's where healing begins. And Chaplain Derek says something in reference to treating people like human beings. I've said to many law enforcement or officers, because we have language that we use. Mm-hmm. So if a person is a thug or a perpetrator, then they're like an inanimate object. But if that person is somebody's son, somebody's daughter, someone's mother, someone's father, to be able to do that. And I do get it. Sometimes it's hard for people to do their job when dealing with the human part of it. But once we talk about taking prayer out of school, once we take in professionalism, once we take the human aspect out of professionalism, then we can do anything, because it's not it's a thing, it's no longer a person, in reference to that. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I can also say there has been a lot of work that has been done, and there's a lot of great people who are on the ground, in the front line, really getting out there, and making it happen on a daily basis. So I applaud you.
Wow. Wow, you have just helped me. You really, I don't think you really realize how much you've helped me. You've helped me decipher what has happened in our country after George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
After George Floyd, there was an anger
Mm-hmm.
that was seen across the world, not just in the United States, but across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And some people said, well, wow, this anger, what do we now do with it? And the reason why we could not capitalize on it is because of what you just said, or at least one of the major reasons, from my opinion, because we did not see each other as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it as a sad story where a man died before our eyes
Mm-hmm.
on national global TV,
Yeah.
and that's what really moved people to do what they said. But you look now at some of these statements that corporations put out, and we have not held them accountable to those statements. We have
Right.
not held them. Everybody was trying to put out, oh my God, we are with the black people. But now you look, it's like, yeah, that you really just touch on. Go ahead, Chap. Derek, I hear you.
You're hitting. I mean, you're hit. That's my first point about how do we use anger and channel it to something positive. I think what we saw after George Floyd was the immediate response of anger, which was
Right.
a combination of looting, a combination of and there were peaceful protests. There were folks that hit the streets. Like, I feel I have to do something. I feel anger, I feel rage, I feel pain. We've got to go out and do something. But the longer term response is sitting down and saying, I feel angry, I'm upset. What is the solution to making sure that the root cause of my anger never happens again? And then how do I channel that energy towards making sure that reform actually happens? Right. So now, to your point, how do I hold folks accountable for the policy changes that they committed to a year ago? How
Right.
do I hold these corporations accountable? Who's following up to check and see whether or not these folks are doing what they said they were going to do? Who's following up with law enforcement agencies in their neighborhoods to make sure that they're doing events like Faith in Blue, to bridge the gap in their communities with having more community relations? For me, my response was, I'm going to go be more active in my local law enforcement agency as a chaplain. So we're doing a Faith in Blue event next week, next Sunday on the 17th. We're doing a flag football game with the young people in the neighborhood and the police officers that will play and participate in the game. We got cornhole and all kind of games and stuff. And I'll speak at that event. A law enforcement officer speak, and another community member will speak. And the goal is to humanize each other. The people in the neighborhood, in the community, are human.
Right.
People on the police department are human. And we have to see each other in that light. So when we come in contact with each other in more of a professional setting, there's no longer sort of this intimidation factor, or this I don't know you, you don't know me, so you're a threat to me, I'm a threat to you. And that's on both sides.
Right.
The civilians a threat to the law enforcement, law enforcement is a threat to the civilian. Let's get rid of that by humanizing it and coming towards real solutions that start to drive us in the right direction, so that we can stop having conflict like what we saw with George Floyd. If the police knew and had a relationship with that man, a positive relationship and interactions, the encounter with him may have been a lot different, right? which is why I put my kids in front of law enforcement agents. They come out to me to these events. So in the rare chance my child is stopped, somebody say, "Oh, that's little Scott,"
Right.
Because there's community around it. And so again, Chaplain Lisa said it. We have to not only humanize each other, but also normalize the conversations on a regular basis.
Yeah, because if not, it's will always be a us against them or them against us. And when we have conflict, a lot of times the chaplains, they try to have used chaplains to be, to be bring about peace, and also, to be, you, you know, what you said, mediator, but also to kind of crowd control. And all it could go in that it you have to do when I say a lot of praying and faith, because it can go in one direction or another. You don't know what the minds of the people are, and so that whole level of respect is there. If you are a man or a woman of respect and good character, in most cases you will get that in return from the community. I also was looking at, like biblical anger. Today, if people would go and rent their clothes and sit in sackcloth and ashes, they would be 302.
Now wait a minute. Now what's 302?
302 here is that they would have to. It's a mental health emergency.
Okay. Come on, teach me. I didn't know these. I honestly
it
didn't
would
know what
it would
these.
it would be a mental health emergency, and they would be subdued and taken in with before they would say with the men in the white jackets, and they would be given a jacket without with everlasting pockets. I should say. But my
Right.
point for saying that is that as a society, as a community, of being able to come together, unity is part of community, the word community, and being able to see that. I just I believe that there are good people, and if we can, just point out the good, lift up the good, because good is always going to outweigh bad. Darkness, light will always dispel darkness, and we have to believe that. As a Bible believer, as a Christian, I believe that where sin is, there's grace. The grace of God much more abound. And so when people come to me about how bad it is, and I said that's just a greater opportunity for God to get the glory and to perform a miracle and a divine intervention. So that's where faith in action is. People, they may listen to what you say, but they actually watch what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so good, and thank you for letting the people know, letting the audience know what you believe. You have free course on Ask the Doctors, and let the people know what you believe, because we understand that we are not just one-dimensional people. That even though we focus in on the mental health aspects of what's happening, we are made up of mind, body, and spirit. We do understand that. Let me say this. I'm going to reset the room, as they say, just a little bit. Just want to acknowledge a few people, and then we're going to continue on with the conversation. This is good. I don't know if you have shared it yet, but you need to share it right now. I see my friend Letitia Malcolm is on here. Thank you. She's been an awesome presenter in the past. Sharon Amos, thank you. And Rhonda Hayes, yes, we know you're at work and you got to go back and watch the replay. Thank you so much. And there's some others who I have not had a chance to acknowledge. There's some others who are out here who are watching. You just don't want to comment. That's cool. That's all right. I would love to know that you're out here watching with us today. This is so important. Anger. We have got to reduce the temperature of our country. Not again because of global warming, because our spirits, our minds, our bodies are at a boiling point, and we need to bring it down. What I want to do now is I want to discuss two things, okay? The first thing is I want to talk about this debate about violence being a public health issue. There are some people who categorize violence as a public health issue. There are others who say it's not a public health issue. We just need to stop allowing people to get away with certain things. It's a very interesting debate. I want to, hear where you all land on this, Chaplain Scott, Chaplain Dennis. Uh, you know, help me out, help my audience out in regards to this debate about violence being a public health issue.
Well, I think, from a public health perspective, right, the leading cause of death for certain age groups all stem from violent activity, whether it's injury to someone, homicide, and then I think the third one, which is important to call out, is suicide, anger of self.
Wow.
So when you think about anger, the sort of response of anger leading to physical harm, it can be classified as a public health issue, right? Because these are some of the leading causes of death in our country. Anytime the response to anger in our country is a call to law enforcement, and much of the way our law enforcement has been trained in this country is to respond with physical violence, with the physical response, right? So if a particular activity elicits a physical response, your only anger is begetting more anger, more physical response. And so one of the things that we're starting to see, and I'm really impressed by my county, where if there's a call for a domestic violence issue or a mental health issue, there's no longer a police officer who's dispatched to that situation unless it's something that's severe, that has been caused something. I forget the word that's used, is heightened security or heightened level of response. Mm-hmm. There's a medical health professional that's dispatched along with the police officer. Good. And the immediate response is not to take that person into custody, but to get them the services that they need. And our county prosecutor has allotted a substantial budget to mental health services as a matter of responding to those types of activities. I think that's important because most times when we're responding to physical behavior, it's always met with a physical response. And more anger begets more anger. And so from a public health perspective, if anger is eliciting that level of response, then we're only continuing to magnify it as our communities continue to deal with tensions and issues that cause people to act out of anger. Poverty is an issue, right? I say that anger is a symptom. It's not the issue. The issue we're addressing is not anger. The issue we're addressing is poverty. The issue we're addressing is grief. The issue we're addressing are all the root causes that lead to anger. Right. And those are the public health crises, in my opinion, because that's what's leading to the response that we see. If you're not addressing the fact that people are hurting in their communities, if you're not addressing the lack of access to jobs, you mentioned Chester, Pennsylvania, blue collar town. When those factory jobs go away, what are people left to? What are they left to do? And then when they're left to themselves, it starts to result in activity that can lead to a public health crisis. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think anger itself is the public health crisis, even though it's being classified that way. I think the root of anger, the things that are causing anger, are certainly contributing to our public health crisis.
That's great. Chaplain.
Yeah. And I would agree. This is what I talked about before of we did a web of causation, and as Chaplain Derek was talking about, poverty, education, homelessness, employment, illness, sickness. You know, there's so many different things in terms of when you have broken systems.
Yes.
Within those broken systems, you have broken people.
Mm.
And so we're talking about an inside out cure in terms of being able to resolve, you know, and having it to be authentic and organic at the same time. So when you're in a situation, when people say we're all in the same boat, you know, we're not all in the same boat. Some people are in a yacht, you know, some people are on a cruise ship, some people, you know, so
Come on here.
but we may be experiencing the same thing, but depending on your resources and the support that you have, there
Wow.
are some people who have a lot of support, and there are some people who have no support at all. And so when a storm happens, you know, that person who has a lot of support, then you know they're able to deal with it, to manage. But the person who doesn't have support at all, they may recourse or you know to other means to survive in those things. So it goes back again, even in terms of finding out what is going on, not necessarily you know, not why did you do it, but what was going on with you at this particular time to cause you to do this. So I go back to the web of causation in reference to uh, anger, but even with the violence. You know, there's a scripture, and I don't want to that is used. That says that the kingdom of heaven suffer violence, and the violence take it by force.
Yeah.
And so people who know that, and then when we talk about peace, then that kind of comes up. My first time on the job, in reference to dealing with the homicide that I talked about earlier, about the 9 youth that were shot.
Right.
When I addressed the public or the media, this is what I said. I said, these are our children.
Mm.
The shooter belongs to us.
Right.
And the ones who have been shot, they all belong to us.
Right.
Okay. Cain killed his brother Abel from the same home.
Mm-hmm.
Violence was in the home. And so, and that was to take the blame away in reference to people pointing the finger. But, you know, it is something that we have to address on every level.
Wow. I like that analogy regarding the boat in particular, because we have to understand that we don't all live in the same boat. Again, I'm just going to go along with that just for a minute here. What I want to say, I'm going to let Chaplain Derek, because he's chomping at the bit here. What I just want to point out is that there are certain structures that are in place that benefit others. And we want to make sure that if we see these structures, we let them know that we're not happy about them, neither will we abide by them, and we're going to say something about them until you take them down. That's where I am, because structural racism, you know, institutional racism, which, you know, up in Ann Arbor, oh my Lord, it is real. I know it's real, you know, because just being a black man or University of Michigan campus, there's just certain things that people just already assumed about you. So again, I want to digress too much, but I just, when you said that, I want to make sure that I emphasize that there are certain structures that are in place that again will fuel the anger that we're talking about, and people. Some people turn a blind eye to that, and they wonder, well, you know, well, why are they mad? You know, we gave them an opportunity. You know, they got a seat on the boat. No, that's not just because you gave me a seat on the boat doesn't mean I. No, we have to be prepared to let people know. I see what you're doing. I know the game. And yet I'm not going to allow the anger that I have about it take me out of here so I can now act a fool, as one of y'all said. And then now I'm no good to my community. All right. Derek.
You're already hitting it. It's a, and thank you, Chaplain Lisa, because you hit this on the head. It's an equity issue, right? And the equity issue determines, depending on what your position is, it determines how your response is viewed. Some of us, our response is viewed as anger. Others is viewed as privilege or entitlement. It's a right. Right. So some people are justified in their anger. Others are just enraged. Right. And so the example I'll use is there's here in the Southeast Michigan, we were hit really hard with flooding this past summer.
Right.
And there was 9 feet of standing water in people's basements on the east side of Detroit, in a neighborhood that backs up really, really bad. We're helping residents fill out FEMA claim forms because there's a federal, emergency declaration in the neighborhood as a result of flooding. This isn't new. These are 100-year floods. Well, it can't be 100-year floods if it's happening every 2 or 3 years. There's something wrong. But this year, we've never gotten a federal emergency declaration up until this year, because this year the flood didn't see social boundaries, and it hit the folks next door in Grosse Pointe, whose median income was well above $90,000 a year. So now it's an emergency because the anger that those folks acted out of, they were justified because of the level of property that they were losing when Detroiters or the Black folks on the other side who have historically complained were just angry. Right. And so there's this challenge that some people have to walk a fine line with their justified anger in order to get the same results as others. And I have to encourage people that even though we have to be extremely cautious with how we approach our response, we're never justified in having indignation. We're never in indignation that results in unproductivity. But we should take that righteous indignation, right, to go do more good and say we're going to hold people accountable the way that you're saying, Dr. Shepard, hold people accountable until the issue is fixed. And when you get a seat at the table, don't come to the table trying to flip it over. Pull your chair up to the table and talk educated, even if you don't know all the words they're using. Sit down at the table and have a dialogue, express yourself until you see change happen. And so if they don't invite you to the table, go get a folding chair and pull it up to the table and make space at the table. Invite yourself to the table. Hold your policymakers accountable. It's usually the people who show up very rambunctious who get dismissed quickly. But the folks who walk in the door and you may not know all the right words, but you express your concerns and you say, I'm going to keep showing up. Like we using biblical references. There was a woman that kept showing up to the king, and he said, you know what? I'm going to give you what you asking for, lest by your continual coming you weary me.
That's right.
And if we don't keep showing up and wearying some of our policymakers, our council members, our aldermen, our state legislators, our federal legislators, that anger is going to continue to be misplaced. At some point, we channel that anger to say, how do we make equitable change happen in our communities?
Wow, this is good. This is good. I'm going to start winding it down here. There's a question that Dr. Antonique Edwards asked, and she was with me last week on the show. So thank you, Dr. Edwards, for being with us again. Did a tremendous job last week. She was asking about the police mental health response that you referred to, and she wanted to know, is that recurring within the city, county, or I guess the boundaries for which that occurs? And then she's also asking, is that a partnership with any other organizations, or did you all hire mental health professionals?
Yeah, so our county prosecutor's office, so in Washtenaw County, we elect our county prosecutor. And so this was a direct response from his campaign. He actually ran on this particular issue. Since coming into Ann Arbor is the county seat, So since coming into this position, we've seen it not only roll out in our county, but we've seen adjacent counties start to adopt it. And there are partnerships with local health organizations who can help become service providers and partner in a way that those dollars can be deployed by the county to be able to use it. I'm almost certain that this brother won't be in our county much longer. I'm sure he's going to be swept away to DC really soon, because we're starting to see it become more of a national model. But I think, and as a national model, I think it's a really great response that even the city of Detroit in Wayne County, where the city of Detroit is starting to adopt it as well. And we're starting to see where there are a lot of cries and calls for defunding the police. We're seeing police agencies become more creative with saying, let us reallocate our own budget to show that there are some unique tools that we can start to deploy to address some of these challenges that we see, especially around mental health.
That's good. That's good. That's very good. Chaplain Dennis, as we're wrapping up here, I want you to give us some takeaways. You've given us so many different interventions that we can get involved in. I love the Faith in Blue movement, and people can go and research and investigate that, and how they can become a part of that, and even hopefully organize that in their cities. Give us some tools or some interventions that we can utilize to, again, promote peace and reduce the anger.
Some of the things that has worked for us, when I talked about the community dialogues, that was based on transformational social therapy. And that's another thing that's becoming more common in our community. Before, you didn't go to therapy, you didn't want anybody to think that you were crazy.
Right.
Now it's okay. We're hearing leaders saying it's okay to talk to someone, a professional, to be able to talk out what's going on with you. Find someone that you trust, or somewhere that you're able to get whatever's in the inside of you. Especially even veterans. We have a lot of folks who were in the service, the military, and they walked away and wanted to put that behind them. We have some folks who were in prison, and they want to put that behind them, and some things that have happened to them. We have some things that has happened in some homes and in some ministries that people want to put behind them. And so we're learning that if we don't manage it, it will manage us. Or, if we don't deal with it, it will deal with us in some kind of way. Stress, comes out in so many other things. So when we talk about, the whole conflict, we deal with conflict education, so that we put the tools in, so other peer to peer. So on each level, they're able to, instead of calling one person in, each level is able to kind of deal with their own conflict in terms of, or mediation, if you will. I am a proponent of grief share or grief support on all levels. Children go through what adults go through. And sometimes there's adult support, but not children support. So we have to look at resources for our children as well. So finding the same resources with our children, our senior citizens, and like I said, our returning citizens, our veterans, anybody who's coming back from somewhere, to be able to get in a place to find some support, because there's a story behind that, or some type of experience that may trigger. And we don't know when something might trigger. We calling it like trauma. A lot of our inner city communities are suffering with PTSD. And so in some communities are dealing with it or addressing it right away. So peace be still. That's all I can say, is that, God is good, and he has put some great people around us. And if we talk to one another, then we're able to help one another. Thank you for that.
Oh, man, that was excellent. Oh, wow. I am so glad that you even emphasized one particular group of people who I hadn't even thought about, our veterans, our people who have served our country, and they come back and they're angry. angry because of what may have occurred to them while they're in the military, or angry, but even by how they were received when they came back home. That is something that many people really don't get a chance to see unless they experience or have a person, someone within their family who was military. And I've got to see a whole different side through my profession of just how angry people are who have served in the armed forces but felt betrayed or felt like they were devalued, even though they were giving their life and time for our country. And so thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I'm sure somebody out there who is a vet appreciate you for saying that. It is time to wind down, you all. Oh man, this is awesome. I was telling them beforehand, they would say, well, I'm not sure how much time we're gonna have. Look, if the conversation is good, we just gonna have a good time when we're flowing. And we thank you so much. Vanessa Wade is out there from Houston. Appreciate you so much. She is always giving me great ideas. And Vanessa, I'm about to pull you into our production team. I'm saying that publicly. So my friend Chantel Taylor Biddies is out there. Oh my Lord, she has been an awesome presenter and guest on Ask the Doctors too. Cheryl Chapman from Chicago is watching. Is anybody else I need to recognize? I think I saw Clarissa out there. Thank you so much for watching. Let's in our next 2 minutes, I'm going to end. I'm just going to give Chaplain Derek and Chaplain Lisa. I'm so used to calling them Elder Derek and Evangelist Lisa, but Chaplain Derek and Chaplain Lisa, just let us know how we can reach out to you if there's some more information that people want to get from you. And as you do that, just give your last few words of encouragement, inspiration to our listeners. Let's start with you, Chaplain Lisa. How can we reach you and your last words?
I can be reached on Facebook, Lady Chaplain, and also through Facebook, Lisa Ordenis. That's the best way, the easiest way right now. I wasn't as smart as Chaplain Derek to put my email on there, but that would be the easiest way. And Dr. Shepard, I'm going to make sure that I give you my information just in case someone would need to contact me through you. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Yes. And you always can reach out to me. People have done this always through one of the social media, I should say always, because it's always more than one, but social media outlets or through my website. So please, I hear feedback literally every week about a show. So thank you. And we'll definitely reach out to you, Chaplain Lisa. All right, Derek, how can people reach out to you?
Yes. So you can find me on Facebook, my name as it appears on the screen here, and also my Instagram handle that you see here, Hope Pusher 24. You can find me there. Either of those platforms are great ways to reach me. But Doc, as always, I want to just say it's always a pleasure to be here, and then see all the commentary from great folks that we know as well. Just always honor to be a part of great work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And you all help make this great work. This is a collaboration. I'm so encouraged by what you were talking about with mental health professionals working with our law enforcement people. And that is something that we've been striving to do in Baltimore. We still haven't worked out all the kinks just yet, but we're trying to make those moves here and even throughout the country. We don't want to see anybody killed because they're in the middle of a mental health crisis like we have in areas in New York and Colorado, other places that we've seen. We don't want the anger of our society to cut somebody's life off short because we don't know how to promote peace or how to be able to reduce that conflict. I'll say this last thing. Let's make sure that we increase the empathy. Let's love our brother, love our sister, as the scriptures have told us, and let's look out for one another. And as we do that, even during the pandemic, we will do better. How does that look? Let's get vaccinated. That's a whole other show. All right. But I had to throw again. You ask the doctors. I don't want to make sure that we are taking care of one another. And how do we do that? We want to make sure that we're doing the measures that require us to be able to be healthy during this time of pandemic. All right. Again, Ask the Doctors comes on each Friday. You can see us here live, or you can go back and watch the replay like so many people do. Again, sponsored by Hope Health Systems, which is a mental health organization, in Woodlawn, Maryland. And you can reach out to us, hopehealthsystems.com, and we'll do you some good. If you're dealing with some anger, we'll help you out. And if you need some conflict resolution, we'll be sure to put you in touch with those persons who can provide that care and service for you. All right. My guests, please stay put. I want to go ahead and sign off. See you. Please have a wonderful weekend. Please stay safe, and we'll look to see you next week.